What's up everybody, Shane here from Fugatech 3D Printing, and today we're doing part 3 of my Voron Legacy build. Welcome back everybody. So what I'm doing lately is I'm converting my old HyperCube into a Voron Legacy, and so far we have gotten the frame built and the complete Y-axis and bed mounted into the frame. We've had great progress so far, but today again we're going to be working on the Y-axis. This is probably the most part intensive or printed part intensive part of the build. The extruder has quite a few pieces, but not quite as many as this. There's quite a few here on the table. Lots of bearings, lots of bolts, T-nuts, all kinds of things are going to go into this. So I'm going to go through this step by step so you can follow along if you're trying to build this as well, because again, there currently is no actual documentation. I am using the CAD design in Fusion 360 to figure out all of where all the bolts are, the size of them, all the different parts I need. I am figuring all of that out with Fusion 360. So first up, we're gonna go ahead and work on the front idlers. Okay, so we're starting right here with the front left of the printer, and we're gonna need just 3 printed parts. We're gonna need the top, which is gonna go again on top of our extrusion. This is a modified piece that Aaron made for the build. He's also building one, so I'll make sure I link this down below. And then underneath we have our lower section, which just is going to go underneath there. And then we have a bearing spacer that is going to go between where our bearings are and between these 2 pieces. We're going to need 2 of the what are these? The F695 flanged bearings. We're gonna need 2 of those. We need 2 16mm M5 button head bolts, 2 T-nuts, and 1 of the 30mm M5 bolt. Okay, so to get this going, we have here our top piece. Our 16mm goes through. We add the T-nut onto it. It's going to go right there. And I don't have my screwdriver. Okay, we can tighten this on. And it's nice to have this little extra flange here because now the top of the extrusion is not sharp. All right, next we're going to get our bottom piece, which goes on the exact same way with a 16mm M5. Except it's going under the extrusion, matching all the way up against the front there. Okay, we have those 2 on. All right, so now that I have the right M5 flanged bearings, we can go ahead and put this idler on here. So the way this is going to go is you need to have a 1mm washer on top, 1 on the bottom, and we're going to put this through here, like so. Pull those up, our washer up, and then we have our 3D printed spacer, which is going to go in here. There we go, like that. Now we can screw that in. And our bearings still move like that. Great. So now I'm just going to do this to the other side. The back of the printer, and we have our AB drive units that need to go on, and these are going to go on just like so. In the back, our motor is going to attach to this, and on the right side we're going to actually have the limit switch for the end stop there. So we'll start with this first, and I'll take you guys through that process. All right, so to start, I just put in the 2 10mm M5 bolts. I'm going to get these into the slot with their T-nuts. And we are going to fasten them down. But the one thing though is how far over do those go? They go right to the edge. Okay. Now you need to line these up with just the end of this back piece of extrusion. You don't want it to go, don't need it to go over the actual corner here. So it just needs to line right along the edge there. All right, so I'm not 100% sure on how this back part goes together easily, but I've got my M5 by 30 bolts. Those goes in those two holes, and then I have my M3 by 30s, which are gonna go into here. And these front two are gonna get this belt tensioner part on here, which goes over these two guys, and it just has enough friction to hold that. So the back bolt here is getting a double set of the flange bearings. Okay, so one washer and then double stack of bearings, and then, well, a stack of bearings, then two washers, and then another stack of bearings. So that's gonna have to go up onto, where'd that top bearing go? I don't put one top bearing on top. I guess I forgot to do that. Or not bearing on top, a washer on top. So we'll just put that aside for the moment. And the front one is getting a bearing on the top. Yeah, so this front one is getting a bearing on the top, and we're just gonna be a washer, bearings, and then a washer. So that'll go up on like that there. And yeah, I don't really know how they want you to do this, because it doesn't, there's no real way to kind of hold it onto this here, really. So maybe I'll try this. Maybe I'll try to stack the washers on here with some smaller bolts. All right, I'm just gonna use two M3s on here to hold the bearing stacks on there, like so. Just around my hand, around them. And hold those two, and push this out on, like so. That's fine. That's fine. Gosh. All right, that's that. That's that. See here. I'll put that there. That's it. That's threading in. And that's threading in. Okay. Whew. So that is definitely challenging to get these bearing stacks on. There might be a different way to do that, but I don't know what that other way is. So there's that. Now in that rush, I did forget to put on the M5 by 10 millimeters on the bottom here. So I'm just going to do that and slide those T-nuts through and figure that part out. All right, that took a second, but this is now fully attached on top and the two on the bottom. So now the last thing to do is to put our bearing on and to attach our motor. Okay, here's the motor, and again, what I want to do is, when I put this in, I want my plug that goes in the back of my motor, or goes into the motor, going to the back of the printer. So put this here, and we will line up both here if we can, and it's attached. Okay, and that is the 1AB unit. The only thing I need to do is to tighten these guys fully down now, and just so they're snug and there's no play in the bearings, and that they still want to freely move, which it looks like that's it right there. Now on the pulley here that's on the motor, this is supposed to be lined up with this top bearing here. I'll probably need to adjust it, but there is a nice window right here on the side that you can easily put your Allen wrench into to adjust the set screws on your motor to make sure that that is in line, but that will definitely do later. So now I'm going to take what I did here and replicate it on that side. So as I'm building this other side, I kind of forgot that I need to put on this is going to be the Y-axis limit switch. So it's this little guy right here. I had this left over from one of my other printers, so I figured I would take it out and use it, and it goes on this back corner. So this is actually the top side of the back right of the printer, and this is just going to go in just like so. There's a little slot there for it, and like that. I was a little bit tight when I first printed it, so I had to use my files just to file it out a little bit, but it fits in there. And then it uses these real tiny M2.5 self-tapping, or I guess self-threading. They're just like, you know, regular plastic screws to put into there. So I'm going to do that real quick. Okay, they do poke out a little bit there, that's okay, but our switch is in. Okay, so the back right is now done. You can see we have our end stop here, and then I went ahead and reprinted these in white, so they have a little bit of accent, but this is the actual not idler tensioner. It's actually the motor tensioner. So if you tighten the screw right here, it actually pulls the motor this way. So right now I have the motors all the way out on both sides. So if I tighten this, it'll end up pulling it closer to get a better tension on the belts if you need to. But for right now, I have those at basically their loosest they could be, and I can always make it more later. All right, we lost audio here for a minute, but here we have all of the parts that we need to actually make the Y-axis connections. So we're going to need 2 smooth rods on either side, and they're going to use these LM8 LUU bearings. And again, 2 of these on each side. They're going to be pressed into these parts here. So there's actually 2 of them. One's going to go in the front, and one's going to go in the back. And that is what's going to hold onto the rods, and that's what our whole X-axis is going to actually attach onto. All right, so first up we have this front and back part here. Sorry, it's a little dark. And we have to push the bearings like this and this into these 2 parts. And they should be flush on each end like that. But they're really hard to push in, so I usually have to use quite a bit of force to get these in. So I'm going to go do that, and I'll come back and we'll see what it looks like. Once those are pressed on, it should look something like this. So it should be nice and flush on each side, and then this is actually the right side. This is the front, so it's going to go on the side like this, coming at you. And you're going to need these other 2 side parts. So before you do anything, these 2 side parts, they need a heated M3 heat insert in there. And then the one with the Voron logo goes on top, like that, with the flat side here in the middle. And then the other one goes on just like so. Those are a nice snug fit. They just fit on there perfectly. And now we are ready to put on some bearings, I think. One thing though, before we put the bearings on, right here, there's a space for an M5 hex nut. So you need to press these in first. Where'd my other one go? Okay, now these guys can go on. Oops. Okay, now we can put in our M5 by 30s here in the front. Tighten these down to give it a real good, solid piece. I mean, this is feeling pretty hefty now with all this hardware and bearings on there. Now it's locked in. Now we can go ahead and do our bearings here and here. And for that, we're going to need some of our spacers. So we have our F695ZZ bearings. We've got our 30 mil and our 50 mil. So we're going to use this 50 up here to go through. And for this one on the right side, for the middle, the bearing, the spacer is going on top. So we're going to put the bearing in here, like that. Okay, and then we have our washer. We have to do our stack. One washer on top, one washer on bottom. And try to get it in there. And we're through. Now I can just tighten this down. Oh, this angle is really tough here. That's just going right into the plastic. Like that. Don't want to be too tight. Make sure that can spin good.
And now for this one here, this is much easier. We're using a 30 M5, and then we're doing our spacer bearing. Other bearing, a little washer spacer, and now our other 3D printed spacer. And that just screws right into the plastic like the front idlers do. That moves. Okay, and that is one of the well, I guess they're on the Y carriage. It's an X idler. I don't know. This is one of the XY idlers, so this is the right side. So I'm going to do all that again for the left side now. All right, so here we have the left side done and the right side done. Again, the Voron logo should be towards the top of each of these. So now with the fun part, smooth rods. I'm going to put these in. Again, there's 2 for each side. And the way these have to go in is that these have to go into this front piece all the way in here, and then there's a back piece right here that goes onto each of those. So I'm going to have to try to figure out what's the best way to do that, because I don't really know. Just going to have to kind of figure it out, I guess. I think the best way to do it though is going to be pushing it on first to these like this, and then putting it here into the front. But I don't know, let me try to figure this out real quick. Again, no assembly guide, hurrah. All right, so once that's connected, then we put in our M5 by 10, the T-nut. Okay, get that ready. And then we'll get our bearings. Slide this onto here now. And then figure out how to do this. So I think I might have to move this motor over first, because that's in the way, at least until I can get, yeah, that's in the way. So let me move this motor over some real quick. Slide that over. Okay. Now we can put this into here. And press it into these front guys here. So, I need, where's my little hammer? Okay, that's in. So now, I can attach this, and then pull the motor over, and then it is just right there. And it should be that close, right? Yeah, they should be practically kissing. All right, so that's this side on. That's not too bad. Just for awareness, this part right here goes on the back, but since this video is only covering the Y-axis, this is going to be included in the X-axis part. But just realize that there is still one more part that has to be clamped onto here, and this is what's going to hold on the X rails. So I'm going to go ahead and do the other side, and I'll show you that when it's done. All right, well, it's been I think about 2 weeks since I initially started this step, because again, I ran out of those F695ZZ 5mm bearings for all of the idlers. So that's because the Voron designers like to use the stacked bearings. I don't know really if there is much proof on a stacked bearing being better than just the simple, 3 or 5mm bearings that you get in like every other printer, but obviously they do it for a reason. Maybe they do it because these are higher quality bearings. I don't really know, but either way, that wasn't a too terribly hard step to do everything. It definitely took some time. I would say probably total, if I just worked at this, probably like an hour and a half, maybe even 2 hours, just beginning all of the prep work to drill through all of the parts to make sure that the bolt pass-throughs were pass-throughs and that the bolt where it would cut into the actual filament would cut into it properly.
getting these to fit these 8mm rods, I did have to drill out these front idlers a little bit. And again, I'm using these different front idlers. These ones cover the top of the extrusion, so there's no like getting too super scratched up. These were made by Aaron, so I'll put a link to his page and everything down below where you can get these on Printables, is where he hosted those at. So thank you to him for making those, because I was going to make them, but I thought I should ask him first, and thankfully I didn't have to remake them. We've got both the motor mounts, and then we have, again, the Y-axis end stop is back there and mounted. I did check it with, again, these little clamps that go on the back for X-axis. It does trigger properly, so yay, that's good. And these both slide real easily, so can't really complain. It's interesting how close and tight a lot of the tolerances are in this. It's really like where this back Y rod holder sits and connects to the extrusion is, I mean, it's like kissing this one and this one, it's maybe 1 millimeter off. Like, it's super duper close. Could be because my rods are a smidge too long, but either way, they still fit properly, which is what matters. But yeah, I mean, the tolerances on this and how close everything is when it's finally in there is just really crazy. So again, kudos to the designers so far. I am really liking this. It's been a fun build. So that is really going to be it for this one. So again, I'll put links to all the hardware and the files for all of this printer down below, so feel free to check those out. If you buy these parts, please use some of my affiliate links down there. That helps me fund printers like this and keeps the channel going, so I appreciate to all of you for watching. I will have part 5 up here soon, and that is going to be the X-axis. That's going to be a lot of fun. So we're going to get kind of the extruder carriage mounted on there, and then we'll get everything mounted. That's going to be probably a shorter video because it's a lot easier to assemble. So I don't know, maybe I'll combine X-axis with extruder. I don't quite know yet. But anyways, stay tuned for the next video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Leave a like button and subscribe. Yeah, leave a comment down below. Like this video, share it with your friends or anybody who's thinking about building one of these printers. And again, I hope it really helps you out. Use those links down below. I appreciate it. And I appreciate you guys watching. So thank you for tuning in. I'll see you guys next time, and happy printing.